Welcome to Self-Centered Living, a podcast that serves as a vital platform for women of color to take charge of our narratives and where our voices are amplified. I'm your host, Trish, and here we delve into our diverse experiences and enrich humanity through a blend of personal stories and insightful discussions with a range of guests. We aim to foster meaningful connections and understanding among our listeners. In today's episode, I'm joined by Natasha Scott Reichel, one half of the vibrant duo behind the Two Black Girls, One Rose podcast. Have you ever admired someone's success and made assumptions about how they arrived at it? It's a common tendency, but what if I told you that Two Black Girls, One Rose nearly never happened? Join us as we dive into the unexpected pivots that led to the birth of this podcast. I invite you to consider Natasha's relationship to her story and the surprising benefits she experienced from sharing it. What aspects of her journey resonate with your own experience? I am glad to be chatting with Natasha Scott Reichel, one part of the podcast duo Two Black Girls, One Rose. For anyone who has yet to listen to the podcast, both Natasha and her bestie, Justine, explore the dating scene, providing commentary, analysis, observations, helpful advice, looking at popular television. Over the last several years, and congratulations, you recently hit your 7-year anniversary. Two Black Girls, One Rose has taken off. For anyone wanting to know how it has been for Natasha and Justine to be best friends in business together and how they navigate their friendship while producing their podcast, I recommend that you listen to Les Alfred's Bounce Black Girl podcast. It's a great conversation. But for the purpose of self-centered living, we are going to do an inward dive centering Natasha's journey today. You and I have a mutual friend. Shout out to Reem. She introduced me to you as well as the podcast. I have to tell you, I have been coupled up for 26 plus years. Of those 26 years, at least 22 of those years institutionalized. So I am so far off the dating scene. As for The Bachelor, I maybe watched 1 or 2 episodes when it first came out many years ago, but really have not paid any attention to it. And did not know that the whole dating thing can be so entertaining until listening to you and Justine provide your commentary on The Bachelor. Since then, you have more shows that you're providing reviews on. In addition to that, it's very nuanced. You provide helpful tidbits. I mean, some of the detail and things that you two go into, as a single person, I would want to be paying attention. I would want to be listening. I especially appreciate that you provide our women of color perspectives and considerations when dating. You two do not hold back. And you also share from personal experience. As you know, self-centered living is really dedicated to our stories and us owning our narratives. So I'm excited to have you with me today and to be able to dig in.
Nice. I'm excited to be here. I'm really excited for this conversation.
Let's start with a little bit of background on Natasha. Give me a little bit about the formative years or the origin for Natasha Scott.
Well, I'm from a small little suburb in New Jersey, youngest of 3, first-generation American. Both my parents were born in Jamaica, immigrated to the States when they were like teenagers. And yeah, I've always been creative. I've always been, artistic.
Let's talk about that. Because you just said 2 parents who are from Jamaica, Caribbean. My parents are also from the Caribbean. And I don't know about your parents, but the culture prioritizes certain things. Certain things are more acceptable than others. So when you say you're creative, how did that go down?
So yeah, I've always been creative. I've always been a writer. When I was younger, I was always had a book with me. I'm always working on a little arts and crafts. I loved school, so it's not that I didn't like academia or I was only interested in art class, but I've always been drawn more to like creative arts, which, yeah, I think kind of made me stand out in my own way out of the 3 of us, my older brother and my older sister. My sister followed in my dad's footsteps. He's an ophthalmologist, and so she went the medical route. I'd never had any interest in medicine or science or anything like that. And my brother was an athlete. He went a more athletic route. And then it's like each of us had like a different interest, and then I went more of the creative route. But yeah, I feel like, when I get into college, I decided I wanted to study communications and film studies, and that didn't make a lot of sense to my dad in the beginning. It's like, what are we going to do with a film studies degree? pursue what you want to pursue. You have your interests, but there was always like a big question mark and a big like, so what is this? Like, what are we doing with this? But I think I was always very independent, always very confident, and just knew what my interests were. So there was no convincing or talking me into going into another route.
So was he quietly in the background saying, this will pass?
Probably hoping and wishing one day I'd like wake up and like have a different path. But yeah, I think my parents, they always acknowledged I was artistic and more creative. I know my dad, he always thought I would do very well in like advertising. So acknowledging that I'm creative and I have creative skills, but why don't you check out this industry that's more corporate? You can make a little bit more money. It's a little bit more straightforward. You can still use your artistic skills, but you can probably do something a little bit more lucrative. So there's always an acknowledgement that I had a specific type of creativeness. But yeah, when I decided to spend my college undergrad studying communications and taking a lot of film classes, and every summer I was doing an internship in the film industry, it was very supported, I would say, by my parents. But there was always a little bit of we don't know how to help you because we're not in that field, So you're kind of leading us, you're leading the way. And just, the preconceived notions of doing an artistic, profession it's scary. Are you going to get a job,
Right.
And so there was always a little bit of that. I could feel that fear and that tension. But I've always been someone, as I said, very independent, creative, march into my own beat, that I'm like, I'll figure it out. I'll be fine.
Now, your mother is also in science or more or less in science?
Yeah, still in the sciences, medical.
Very much in the practical side of things.
Yes, yeah. But she was an entrepreneur. So she had her own home health aid agency. And then my dad had his own medical practice. So they both essentially worked for themselves, both entrepreneurial. And so that also had a huge impact on me. My parents were professionals and, busy, worked a lot, but they also always had time and space for us. And they could do that because they were in control of their hours. They worked for themselves. And I always admired that. I always I don't want to work for anybody else. I want this. Whatever you do, Mom, you run your own business and you get to show up to all my practices and all my dance recitals and drop me here and there, but also do your own thing. That's what I want to do. So I was always very influenced by the idea of working for myself. I didn't know what that was going to look like, but I knew I like the creative arts. I want to eventually work for myself one day. I don't know what that would look like in the long run. But yeah, I would say my mom's proclivity to having her own businesses and being an entrepreneur definitely influenced me. Same with my dad running his own practice. That definitely was a huge impact on me too.
So they planted this entrepreneur seed.
1,000%.
But they're questioning this television thing. What is she doing? So how would you explain to them this interest? If you did explain,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it sounds like if your mind's made up, your mind's made up.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm just imagining that they were probably circling back, especially Dad,
Mm-hmm.
who's like going to advertising,
Mm-hmm.
you get a paycheck.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if I ever had a sit down conversation with them, this is what it is. But I grew up in a family that every Friday we were at the movies. Every big blockbuster that was out, we were there. I remember one night we saw 3 movies in one night. We went to one movie and then we snuck to 2 others. I grew up in a family, where we love movies. We love having movie nights. I grew up watching old movies because my dad had a love for, old black and white, Beckett, Richard Burton, old-timey movies that I grew up watching. So I think he inadvertently instilled this love for film in me. And I just wanted to take it that much further and what does it look like to work in the film industry? And so, yeah, I don't know if there was ever a conversation where acknowledging this started here, you guys instilled this in me. But I don't think it was I don't think it was even a huge surprise for them that I was going in this route. Because I always had a love of film, of novels, of writing, of art. But I think in college, every summer, it's all right, what am I doing this summer? I got to find an internship, I interned at a film production company. I interned at a film studio. I interned my senior year my junior year, going into senior year at Nickelodeon. it was me kind of like coming back and telling them, here's what I did today, or here's what it looks like, or here's what I learned, or here's what the industry, kind of teaching them what I'm doing, and them being very open, them being very supportive, but also always a big question mark, particularly from my dad, not so much my mom, but particularly my dad, as to, okay, cool, but how do we make money? Okay, cool, but, like just wanting to be, making sure that I'm being very discerning
Right.
and understanding what I'm stepping into, because it's so unknown to them. I'm particularly coming from an immigrant background that, we're going to move to this country, we're going to invest all this money in your education, and you're going to choose to go work in the movies. What does that mean? Like,
And I could also see as a parent, just wanting to know that you're going to be secure.
secure, stable, okay. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
totally.
yeah. So you go into college, you're continuing this stuff, you're giving them feedback on it, like what's going on. Pick it up from there.
Yeah.
You did your
So,
internships every summer.
yeah. Yeah.
So you're on track.
I'm on track. Every summer, I'm learning more about film production, film development, film post-production, and just trying
Which,
to.
by the way, that
Mhm.
does come across when you are talking. That was the other thing I was picking up.
Yeah, I love I love TV. I love watching it, but I also, I studied it a little bit.
But
Um,
I don't know if your listeners know that, right? Because when I
mhm,
first listened to it, of course, I didn't have any background information.
mhm,
And I'm listening to it, and I'm like, I'm getting a bit more here.
mm,
This person is savvy around what they're talking about. And particularly one of the episodes I was thinking about was you two were comparing The Bachelor, I think it was, with
mhm.
what's the other one? Love,
Love is Blind.
Love is Blind.
Mhm,
I'll tell you what the crux of it was. You were saying that the length of time that they're given to get to know each other
mhm,
versus on this other show where they
mhm,
don't have that length of
mm,
time. These are
mhm,
sticking, these aren't sticking.
mhm,
And
mhm.
I was just like, okay, they're going into this because
Yeah.
they're looking at the format.
Yes,
And
emotion
yes,
behind it.
yes.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. I studied this a little bit, and my co-host, she studied PR. So we always have this lens of like
Mm,
media analysis, and kind of like what we're seeing is not the full picture, So that's kind of the lens that we can't even help it. That's just the lens we bring on our show and the commentary that we give. But yeah, in college, I took a lot of classes in media analysis, film studies, film theory, film history, watching a lot of movies, writing papers. Like that was kind of my college experience. And then the summertime, I wanted to explore, what is it to work in the film industry? What are the different careers? And, an internship, you're there to explore and kind of learn what you like and don't like. And so I dedicated every summer in college to something in TV or film. And senior year hit. And I don't remember the exact moment, but I remember having a moment with myself where I'm like, do I want to do this? I kind of had like a self-reflective moment where I kind of told myself, like, I love TV. I love film. I've enjoyed elements of each internship, but I never really felt fully comfortable. I never really felt fully placed, I guess. The film industry is very much a ladder. You start at the bottom as an assistant, and you got to climb your way up. You spend a lot of time working on projects that you don't care about, but it's because you're trying to get the door open, meet the right people. There's a lot of shaking hands, kissing babies, making sure people know you. There's a lot of nepotism, and I'm a naturally I'm a naturally introverted person. I'm a little bit more reserved. I'm not the loudest person in the room. And every internship, I would always get the same feedback, like, you do great work, but you got to speak up a little bit more. You got to get people to
mm.
notice you. You got to. And I just felt sometimes like my personality didn't match. I'm like, am I going to, I don't know if I have the grit to kind of like climb through and push people out the way to be seen. And it was kind of like distracting from my love of film. And so it's like, maybe I just love film, but I don't need to work in the industry. Like,
But
so I
this is
really,
senior year.
my senior year to graduate, and now I'm like, oh my God, like, did I do the wrong thing? So I started to think with myself. I think I remember going to the career center and kind of doing like these personality tests and career tests and trying to like explore what else is there, because I was so one track minded. And the only other thing that I really was interested in and had like a passion for was like community give back, community building. My mom, outside of her healthcare business, always ran a nonprofit. So it was like her labor of love, her little creative passion project.
Okay.
She ran a nonprofit called Dorset Community Foundation. based in the inner city, serving inner city youth. And I grew up with that nonprofit. I was one of the students in all of the programs. And then as I got older, I would volunteer and help her run the programs. And I had a lot of fun. It was very fulfilling for me. And I was like, all right, that's the only other thing I know that I like. So let me take a class on urban education. And then I started volunteering at West Philadelphia High School, tutoring students and kind of exploring this other industry, other side of which was education, nonprofit work.
So you said
And
West Philadelphia. Where did you do your undergrad?
at UPenn.
Huh? Okay.
So yeah, West Philly, I mean, Penn is literally in the middle of West Philadelphia. And I have always felt more drawn to like high school students, not really the little kids. So I was like, let me sign up to volunteer at West Philadelphia High School, which I remember going to the meeting. It was like a tutoring organization. You could pick what school or what age group. There was like me and like two other people that signed up to work with the high schoolers. And they were like, you
Yeah.
sure you want to work with the high school? Like the high school is real rough. And I was like, I'd much rather work with the high schoolers than the little kindergartners. So
As a former elementary school teacher, the high school scared it out of me.
really, I love high school kids. So yeah, I was like, all right, let me go explore this interest. And it was, yeah, like last minute senior year. And I was like, okay, let me go see what this is about. And yeah, just kind of give myself another opportunity and then really sit with myself and feel like, okay, what is it that you want to do here? So yeah, that was my senior year. I graduated, I moved home. I kind of bumbled around for a little bit, just doing little odd jobs, making money, always entrepreneurial. So always figuring out a way to hustle and kind of like make money. I started a little jewelry business. It was like a fun hobby. I was making jewelry and I went to a market and was selling my jewelry with my mom's friend. And then I discovered this website called Etsy. I was like, "Ooh, let me set up a little shop on Etsy." And people started buying my jewelry on Etsy. And then, very random detour. I don't remember if I spoke with you much about this. I lived in Australia for a year.
You did not? I know that you do love traveling. This I do
Yes.
know. And again, you share some of this through the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
But I did not know Australia for a year. Of all places, Australia.
So I my junior year, I studied abroad in Sydney. Had the time of my life, had such a huge impact on like who I am today. And after college, I'm sitting at home. I don't know what the hell I want to do with my life, and I was really scared to apply for jobs in LA, which is where the film industry is. And something about it, just like I don't know if I want to do this. And I was saving up all this money from my little hustling and odd jobs and selling jewelry and bumbling around. And I had a friend that was going to do a backpacker year in Australia. And I was like, let me go do that. And I went and did that. And while I was there, I was selling jewelry the whole time. My jewelry business took off. I went to Australia thinking I was going to be a backpacker working at a cafe and finding myself. And instead, I was running this like bustling Etsy shop that was like popping off. But that year was really impactful. I spent a lot of time traveling, but also just like self-reflecting. Literally went there to like find myself, as almost like you see on TV, these like little kids go off, I'm traveling the world to go find myself. That was literally what I was doing. And I had a very impactful conversation with a guy from Germany I met at a party, and we're chatting about life and, what are you doing here? And what are you doing here? And we had a shared interest in music, and he studied music. And I was like, oh, I studied film. But he's like, yeah, but I'm doing engineering now. I was like, engineering? How did you go from music to engineering?
Yeah.
And he said, and this like stuck with me. That was like my light bulb moment. Like, this is what I needed to meet this person to have this conversation. Where he said, I kind of just realized like I love music, but I don't know if I need to work in music. Like sometimes your hobbies and your passions can just be your hobbies and your passions. You don't have to explore it as a career. And you would think that's so straightforward. Like, of course you should know this, but hearing this guy say this to it really, really
I don't know.
stuck.
These random strangers.
Random
Sometimes
strangers.
that's what it takes. I don't know what they
That's
say,
what it.
angels unaware.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly it. And so I went back home and completely pivoted away from film and television and decided to sink more into nonprofit education work. And that my first like real job outside of college was for a nonprofit doing, it's called A Better Chance. We'd basically find high achieving students of color and help them get access to private schools and boarding schools around the country, kind of help change their educational trajectory. And yeah, I decided just to go completely away and start pursuing that route.
Was this feeling more acceptable? I mean, at the same time, we're still dealing with the seeds that your parents had planted. So this is on the side of your mom in her passion project. I mean, it's giving back. So it
Yeah.
still feels like, all right, this is the orbit that you would be in. What is dad saying at this time?
Definitely more straightforward. It's like, okay, I understand this a little bit more, but how much money are you making? And $30,000 a year? Like, oh, are you sure? And I'm working like nights and weekend, nonprofit work. Everybody, all hands on deck. You're working OD and making pennies. So still a little side eye. Like, okay, makes a little bit more sense to me, but you're so driven. This what you want to do?
Leaving Australia and the conversation with the German guy, we're going to call him the random German guy, right? The belief that you're leading with at this point is that, all right, communications, television, maybe that was just a hobby. And I don't need to make this my career. That's what you're thinking at the time.
Yes, that was what I was thinking. Yeah.
Okay.
That was what I was thinking.
Come back. You go into the nonprofit world. Let's pick up from there. So how's that going? Because again, it probably would feel a little bit familiar because of your mom's work.
Yeah.
It seems like it's a safer bet. No, it's still not bringing the dollars that dad would like to see, but
yeah,
in a more, I guess, acceptable space.
Right. So yeah, all the while so I'm just gonna plant this seed because we're gonna circle right back to this. My mom's nonprofit, Dorson, the one that she's been running and I've, been helping out, I was always in the background. No matter what job I had, I was always on Saturdays, let me run over to Jersey and help my mom run this workshop, or let me mentor this kid real quick. Let me run, set up this little SAT program. Like, that was always happening in the background. But yeah, I worked at this organization, A Better Chance, for a couple of years. And I decided to go get my master's at Teachers College in Columbia, studying higher education. And I was just really into the world of college access, helping people who look like me get access to prime education. How do we do this? So I went to study my master's. When I left my master's program, or while I was in my master's program, I worked at a charter school doing college success work. So working with students who have graduated, they're now in college, but most of them are first generation low income. They need support, So I was doing my graduate internship on that side of things. And then I graduated from my master's and stayed at Columbia. I worked at Columbia for about 3 years as an undergraduate career counselor. So working with Columbia students, helping them figure out what they want to do with their lives. But as I said, all the while in the background, I'm working on this nonprofit with my mom. And then in 2017, me and my friend decide, let's start a podcast, which was at the time just supposed to be a fun little creative project. I would always watch The Bachelor, almost like a guilty pleasure. I think I started watching with my mom, and then it's just one of those shows that, The Bachelor's back, let's watch. My friend didn't really watch too much, but Rachel Lindsay was named the first Black Bachelorette, and I was like, girl, we gotta watch. And so I was living in Harlem, she was living in the Heights. Every Monday we would alternate whose apartments, alternate who brings the bottle of wine, and we were just glued in front of the TV watching Rachel Lindsay as the Bachelorette, it was just amazing to see because it's such a historically white show. Like, they are.
That's why I never watched.
Exactly.
You guys.
Yeah. Not surprised. The show is so obviously devoid of diversity, not even just in the lead, but even in the contestants. And here we're watching a Black woman as a lead. I was like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing ever. So she and I would get together every Monday and watch, and the show would end at 10, and I'd be at her apartment like 1 a.m. and we'd be there cracking up and talking about the show. And
was that feeling like an escape at the time?
Definitely.
Like, okay, all right.
Yeah.
Everything else that you're doing to me feels rewarding, but also heavy. If you're working in
Yeah.
the office,
Yes. Yeah.
between Columbia University and even the help you're doing with your mom, there's like a gravity to it.
Yeah, for sure. So it was definitely, my Mondays were protected. I never missed one. We would get together and Kiki and laugh and drink wine and have a great time.
Which I love about your show, the Kiki.
It's all about the Kiki. Yeah.
actually it's not. It's so much more to it. But I
Yeah.
do show up for the Kiki.
For the Kiki. Exactly. So it started just she and I, just literally in our living rooms, Kikiing. And also during that season, Rachel Lindsay, because I just loved her. I started finding Bachelor podcasts. I was like, I want to hear what else are people talking about with Rachel. I got to know more. And as I'm listening to these podcasts, I'm like, are they watching a different show? Like, what are they talking about? There's nobody of color in Bachelor Nation in the podcast realm recapping Rachel's season. I'm listening to white men talk about her season. I'm listening to these white women recapping, and it literally felt like they were watching a different show. Like they were just not catching the same nuances that Justine and I were like discussing after we watched the show. So yeah, Justine and I kind of put our heads together and we're like, well, why don't we start a podcast? Like this could be fun. We don't know nothing about podcasting. I don't even think we really thought anyone would listen to it. It was just for us. Like we were cracking each other up. Like let's just set up a mic and like record it. Maybe our moms will listen at least. And so, yeah, we bought these little cheap microphones from Amazon. We sat on her bed, her literal bed, and recorded our first episode, put it up on Twitter. Because that's where Bachelor Nation at the time, like everything was happening on Twitter. And almost instantly we had listeners. Like I always like to say that we were kind of low-key an overnight success. Almost from our first episode, listeners, people following us. What are these girls saying? And we were having fun and watching the download numbers grow, watching our follower count on Twitter grow. And we got to interview Rachel Lindsay. Like we got to
crazy. And this is pre-pandemic, right? This is still
was 20. We started 2017. It was like 2018. We started December 2017. So all of this was happening like 2018. We got to interview Rachel Lindsay. We got to interview different contestants. We had a lot of fun. It was just cool seeing people interacting with us on Twitter and like, oh my God, I love you girls. This is the best. And we did a few seasons before we kind of looked at each other like, okay, this is a lot of work. This is fun and all, but like we're both working our day jobs and I'm at work with the door closed, editing the episode to put up. And I'm like, this is a lot of work. We're not even making no money. Like, and we're listening to other podcasts and they're getting advertisers. And we're like, how do we get that? We would spend our Sundays at coffee shops sending out all these emails, like introducing ourselves and trying to get ads. And nobody's responding. Nobody's touching us. And I remember they then announced that, the next Bachelorette is going to be Hannah B., who was this girl that Justine and I looked at each other. We're like, I'm not watching this season. We were not excited or enthused by this girl. I don't know if you're aware, The Bachelor, the lead always is a fan favorite from the season before.
Yes, I at least noticed that part.
Yeah. So she was a fan favorite, but we could not stand her. I was like, there's no way I'm watching a whole season unless I'm getting paid somehow. Like, this is too much work for me to be sitting here and I don't even like this girl. So we also couldn't figure out the advertising space. So we're like, how do we do this? So around this time, we became aware of a platform called Patreon. We started to hear a lot of podcasters promoting their Patreon. Join on Patreon for bonus content. And so we were like, oh, let's start a Patreon. It's like this cool website where our listeners will pay us like a small monthly whatever we determine. And then let's just put the episodes up on there. That way we'll make a little bit of money. But also, let's see if people are even interested in this. So we recorded a little video on Instagram. We said, hey, guys, as you already know, we're not excited by Hannah B. And we're only doing this season if y'all want to join us on Patreon. If we can get 1,000 people to join us on Patreon and donate $5 a month to our hard efforts doing this season, like, we'll keep it going. And we had over 1,000 people join us on Patreon. So we're like, all right, guess we're doing it.
Wow. So what happens then? Because you didn't even think you were going to get 1,000 probably. I mean, in the beginning, you guys didn't even know where this was going.
Right.
But I'll let you in on a little secret. The shows are second to you and Justine's relationship.
Totally. At this point, yes.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I'm showing up for.
Yeah.
What are these two laughing about today? What are they telling us today?
Mm-hmm.
So I could totally understand how it could pick up quickly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And we're very, very blessed that we're, two friends having a Kiki. Like, we're watching a show and then we turn on the microphones and we talk about the show. And something about our chemistry, something about our laugh, like, just feels very infectious to people. brings them a lot of joy in their day. Some people watch The Bachelor and they're the only person in their family or friends that are watching it. So we're like their friends in their head that they get to, watch the show with. And then in our community on Patreon, they can go in the comments and meet other people and talk. And so it started off as just like this fun creative project that then soon blossomed into like so much more than that. To now it's just this amazing community of our listeners who are there for us and our friendship, but also are like connecting with each other and this shared interest around these different shows and just being women kind of talking about dating or talking about life. And it's been really beautiful considering like what our initial intention was to what it's just like over time morphed into.
And I see it satisfying some other aspects that were important to you. You were always involved in community stuff, and here it is, you're helping to build community, and you still have community. And then there's a generosity to it because, again, you guys are giving from lived experiences, your guidance, your ideas, your commentary. So I feel like there's different ways you could do the giving or the giving part of nonprofit. It helps if it's for profit. It helps if you make some money on it. I like that part.
That's not bad.
But you're still finding ways to satisfy these needs that were planted in you, which is, I think, brilliant. I like this. So it's taken off. You do Patreon. You still have your Columbia job. I'm sure you're still helping out your mom.
Yeah.
So what is life looking like? Because again, you didn't initially think that the podcast was going to take off in the way that it has taken off.
Yeah.
So what does life look like?
Yeah. So this is like 2019. I'm like so burnt out, working like crazy. As you said, I have my day job. I'm closing my door at my day job to finish editing this podcast. I'm also running to Jersey in the evenings and then the weekends to help my mom with the nonprofit. I met my husband around this time. So I'm falling in love. That's the whole other thing that's happening.
I don't even know how you fit that in.
I don't know how I did either. Like, that's a whole other layer. Is like I found my person. I'm like in love with him, and I'm like falling in love, which is the whole thing, So I'm like busy. But the Patreon was popping off, and we're making good money. And at the same time, in my head, I'm living a very compartmentalized life, right? I have my day job, and then I have this little creative project that's like my escape, as you said, with my friend that also happens to be making some money, so that's fun. And then I have the nonprofit, which is really fulfilling me more than like everything. It's like really feeding my soul. The work that we're doing with these, these young people in the inner city, helping them with college, helping them pursue their dreams. And I'm getting more and more involved in helping my mom run the organization. And I get to this point where I realize I'm making enough money with the podcast that I could leave Columbia and I can go work on the nonprofit full time. And the whole dream was I'm going to step in as the executive director of the nonprofit, our first ever executive director, and I'm going to get a salary and I'm going to run this full time, right? This has been my mom's passion project, dream project, labor of love, $0 paid. I'm going to run this whole thing. I'm going to get a salary. I'm going to do this. And I'm going to be doing it for the next year. The podcast is going to help me live as I do this, as I build out, my real job at the nonprofit. So that's what happened. I quit my job at Columbia. I stepped in to run the nonprofit. I launched this new program with these 20 high school students. We're going to track them for the next 4 years. And all the while, now instead of juggling 3 jobs, I'm juggling 2, the nonprofit and the podcast. Fast forward 3 years later, the pandemic happened. That threw a huge wrench into the nonprofit. Everything's gone virtual. These 20 students that we were working with in person, now we got to move this entire program online. They're dealing with a lot of mental health issues. They're dealing with a lot of, loneliness issues. It became so consuming, really trying to support these students and try to get this program off the ground. At the same time, try to fundraise, find donors, build a salary for myself. Like, it became way more than I thought I was signing up for. I'm like, oh, let's run these programs with these kids. Overnight, I became like a development director. Now I'm like talking to funders and trying to get money. I was like, what the hell is this? It's not what I want to do. Also, at the same time, over the past 3 years, the podcast blew up. Now we're making double what we were making on Patreon. It's requiring more time and effort. Now I find myself building 2 things at the same time and somehow trying to keep my head above water. building the nonprofit, and then also, from these set of hours and then these hours, I'm meeting with Justine and we're building this podcast business. And it was just, I was so just in it.
Yeah.
That I was just grinding on both of them at the same time, and hardly ever stopping to ask myself, what are you doing? Like, this is impossible. You're literally running yourself into the ground trying to do both. Is it even possible to do both to the full extent that you're trying to do? And so that was a huge moment I had with myself that came after we met with some Patreon executives in New York. They flew in to New York. They were making the rounds, meeting with different creators. And one of the meetings was with us. And the woman, she had this whole PowerPoint presentation like about us. And I'm sitting there like, what? So she's like showing all the success that we've had. And do you guys know, for the last, 3 years you've been on the platform, you've doubled in revenue every year. And she's telling me about myself. And I've been so in it, I didn't even realize like
Great.
the extent of the success and the extent of the money and like what we were really, the potential that was really there with the podcast. And, I'm talking to her about the nonprofit and I'm like, I'm running a nonprofit right now. Like, this podcast is cute or whatever, but like, I have this commitment to these kids. And she just asked me, she's like, so in your ideal world, what does it look like with the both of them? And no one had asked me that. I had not even asked myself. In my head, I'm just going at 100 on both projects. And I had to really, really be honest with myself. And with the nonprofit, becoming the executive director, building this whole new program, what I love is the work with the students. That's been my whole career, is programming, being in the classrooms, doing curriculum, teaching classes. What my work had become was way more development focused, fundraising, getting that money. And I just didn't realize that that's what I was stepping into. But it's like, of course, Tasha, like, you need to find a salary. Who's going to find the salary? You got to go fundraise the salary. And so my attitude and my feeling towards the nonprofit started to shift because I was like, I'm being taken away from the core aspect of it that I really love. We now hired a program manager. She's doing all the fun stuff. And I'm over here fundraising all day. So like my whole attitude was changing towards it. And at the same time, I'm still having a blast with the podcast. And the podcast is also paying my bills. So I had to really have a serious discussion with myself. Like, mental health wise, I was in like the worst state.
That's what's going to answer you. How are you resourcing yourself? How are you navigating it? I mean, plenty of times we feel like we have to do it all by ourselves. You're in this unique place where you're working with your best friend on the podcast, and you're working with your mom on the nonprofit. But at the same time, I'm hearing that you're carrying a lot alone.
Yeah.
So, yeah. How are you resourcing yourself?
It's rough. Like, at the nonprofit, I was actually working closest with my husband. So we weren't married at the time. At this point, we're boyfriend and girlfriend, I guess. But he also worked in the education space and he got involved with the nonprofit. He was basically my co-captain. So my mom is like slowly pulling away, slowly retiring, and like, you guys got it. He and I are running the show along with a board of directors. So I have support, but I'm the leader. Everyone's still looking to me.
I also feel like there's this legacy piece. You're taking over from your mom. Like,
yeah,
I'm doing this for mom. She's going to retire.
Yeah. And feeling like this is something I committed to do. There is a legacy aspect of it. I'm happy to do it. I'm proud to do it. I love this work. I grew up in this organization. Like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to make it even bigger and better than what you did, Mom. But as I'm doing it, I'm just like, I'm burnt to a crisp, because I'm also doing the podcast on the side. Like, I'm going at 100 in both areas. And yeah, mental health. I mean, I just was not taking care of myself. I had burnt out in like 2019. Now we're talking 2021. I'm running on fumes. But still showing up constantly, still showing up. I can't disappoint these students. I can't disappoint their parents. I got to show up for Justine every week. We got to record and I got to be funny. I got to be laughing and, carrying on the mic. But it really was that moment with the Patreon executives. I went home that night, had a real conversation with my husband, boyfriend at the time, or maybe we were engaged, I can't remember, where I just had to be honest. And I was like, I can't do both. I can't do both. I have to choose one. And I think my choice is the podcast.
Wow. Yeah. I appreciate you coming to the conclusion that I have to choose one.
Mm-hmm.
Because the thing that I find is very interesting is that the podcast, I was like, this is brilliant. You're doing it with your friend. You don't have to carry the load by yourself. Like, and for me, I thought like so many times we feel like we have to do it by ourselves, and we do it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting to see that there was this aspect in your life where you were still carrying
Mm-hmm.
by yourself.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's interesting how we could still end up in that place
Mm-hmm.
despite doing something with your now husband,
Mm-hmm.
with your mom, and then your best friend, that we
Mm-hmm.
could still be shouldering something as if
Yeah.
it's like, we have to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hence the question about how you're resourcing yourself. And then
Mm-hmm.
now you're making the decision to choose one over the other.
It was really, really, it was really tough, but it was almost, I had to be honest with myself. Like, you can't keep going like this. Like, you don't feel well and you're not showing up well in all the spaces because you're running on fumes. And so it was honestly a really, really difficult, very devastating decision I had to make.
It sounds
Uh,
like which baby you choosing?
Literally put one down. Um, I went back to therapy because I was like, I know the decision I have to make, but I mean, I feel like I'm letting down so many people. I'm letting down my mom, letting down my husband, I'm letting down the board of directors, I'm letting down all these people I got to buy into this dream. We're just starting this program. You got to, give us your money to go do this. And now I got to tell them after these students graduate, we're not bringing in another group. We need to take a pause.
I appreciate you sharing that you went to therapy. And you also, throughout the podcast, you promote
Yes.
therapy. Oftentimes we ourselves won't readily go and get therapy.
Right.
Coming out of therapy, what was the thing that you were telling yourself that was making this a difficult decision?
Mm-hmm. It felt like almost like I lied to everybody. Like, we can do it, guys. I'm doing it. I have this podcast thing. It's cute, but like this, we're doing it here. And I can do it. I can show up. And I was showing up. I was everywhere all the time. I felt like crap, but I was there. And I felt like I just had lied to everybody. Like, I knew honestly in my soul, you can't do this. You have no more energy left to give. And if you're being honest with yourself, you don't want to fundraise. You don't even enjoy it. So why are we pretending? And so I felt like I was being dishonest, and I had to like be honest with myself first before I could really, humble myself to have these conversations with, our students. We're not bringing another group, guys. We had students who had younger siblings who were like, can't wait for the next cohort, like can't wait to join. I had to talk with the board of directors. I had to talk with our program manager who we hired, who was fantastic and loved the organization and couldn't wait to recruit the next group. And I had to really bring it to a personal level with them, which made it very uncomfortable for me too. Because here I am telling them, I have to step away for personal reasons. I don't feel well. And on top of that, which everybody knew I had a podcast, but I would always, again, live a very compartmentalized existence. They knew it, but I didn't really talk about it all the time. I had to really be open with them about the level of success the podcast was achieving and how much I loved it and how much I think I need to go and pursue it. And that was the hardest pill for me to swallow, was feeling like I was living a lie in a sense, almost like a lie that I didn't even know,
Yeah, more than it being, a lie is how you felt it was. For me, outsider looking in, stuff was shifting.
Yeah, that's really what it was.
Stuff was shifting.
Yeah.
And when you guys started the podcast, two friends getting together, doing what we love, playing.
Playing, absolutely.
And who would have thought that it was going to lead to what it led to? And now you have to have all these serious and heavy conversations.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was. Shout out to therapy. That's all I'll say.
Yeah. Yes.
Shout out to therapy. I could have had these conversations. I could have bucked up and figured it out or whatever, but it was so helpful every week to sit with someone she was my therapist. She was also kind of my coach, where I was like, okay, this week I have to talk with our program manager. I have to let her go.
I'm here for this.
Yeah. How do I do this? Okay, next week I'm talking to our biggest donor. He knows about the podcast, but not really. How do I help me coach it through and just help me really feel comfortable with my decision, kind of really parse through all the difficult feelings, all the just scary feelings of walking away from something that's been a huge part of my life, my whole life, to go off and pursue, this creative, fun, passion project that also has a lot of
Yeah,
unknowns.
but can we talk about how you were coming back home on the creative front? You were
Yes.
coming back home.
Yeah.
You were honoring what you initially set out to do.
Mm-hmm.
The way in which you would do it back in the day, climb this
Mm-hmm.
ladder or whatever, you were like, no, I'm entrepreneur. I don't do this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you found a way to do the thing that you were loving and initially wanted to do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
You found a different way of doing it. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it wasn't this linear path,
Right.
but it's almost full circle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Here's the thing that I appreciate. I appreciate you on doing therapy. And also like just in that being willing to ask for help. And then and even just recognizing I have a decision to make and I
Mm-hmm.
have these conversations that I need to, because I don't know, I would probably happily play a little bit longer. Maybe even be at death's door, trying to juggle it all.
Try.
So all of these things seem like very pivotal,
Yeah. Yeah.
and also continuing to prepare you for the space that you're in now.
Right.
Which
Right.
also, who knew a podcast took so much, as I'm learning?
I know. You see, a lot of technical stuff. There's a lot of
Yeah.
pre-planning. There's a lot that goes into just putting out one episode. Yeah.
So you go and you have these conversations. I'm curious to know, how'd your mom receive it? Because again, we're talking about legacy.
Mm-hmm.
You were always involved.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if dad is understanding podcasts, but money's coming. So I think that makes it easier.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. My mom, she's such a cheerleader. I think I told you the joke, like I could call her right now and say, I'm quitting my job. I'm joining the circus. And she'd be like, okay, well, let me call Bill because he got a daughter that works at the
Like, Mom.
circus. I'll connect you. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. No question. She's just going to support. With the nonprofit, she saw my struggle. She saw, she was there with me having literal panic attacks. Like she witnessed a lot over those years of me trying to hold it together. And so I don't think she was surprised I came to this decision. She also is a huge fan of the podcast. She listens to every episode. So she also saw what was happening over there. I think, part of our conversations was very much like, I ran this thing for like 30 years. It's had such a beautiful tenure. Like, if you need to put it down, put it down. And if ever you want to pick it back up, there's always going to be kids in the community that need help. You could pick it back up. So do what you need to do, and everything will be fine. Like don't hold on to this for me. Absolutely don't do that. And so just having her support, which I knew I was going to have, but it still felt, having this conversation, obviously feel like I'm letting her down, right? But the conversation went a lot easier, a lot smoother, right?
What about with your husband? He was on the bandwagon now.
He was on the bandwagon.
Oh,
That was a little bit more difficult. That was more difficult because we were co-pilots in the same way that me and Justine are like co-hosts of the podcast. He was like my co-pilot in running the program. And so while he also saw me struggling, he also knew how much I loved it and was kind of in his own world, kind of hoping and wishing like, not she'll choose me, like she'll choose this.
Yeah.
But just somehow, we're going to figure it out. Somehow, she's figuring it out. We're going to figure it out. Like, and when it became real, like, I can't figure this out. It's like, it was tough for him. It was tough for him. But I think we just had to have a lot of just deep conversations of really just being honest as like, what's the type of life we want to have together. And we both had to acknowledge how tired we were running a program that we had to turn virtual during pandemic. Like, it took a lot out of both of us. It had a huge impact on our relationship. These kids are going to graduate. Do we want to bring in another group and do this again? It was a real honest conversation he also had to have with himself because he was also working his own day job and doing this on the side. It was tough. It was definitely tough. I think my conversations with him and the impact on him rode on me the most because he's the closest person to me and he really was supporting me in building up the nonprofit. But we figured it out. We're great now. Like,
Good.
you know,
And
we did
dad,
figure
who's
it out.
dad?
My dad, so I'm putting down the nonprofit, which he was always a little like, what kind of money we're making? Like, and now I'm picking up the podcast, which he also a huge fan. I mean, he doesn't really listen to the episode, but huge fan, his nurses and the OR listen. And so he's always like, yes, my daughter, whatever. But it's just, it's back to the creative space, as you said, where it's just like, what is this? Like, how do you make money? What do you do? Just like not fully understanding it. knowing that I don't want for anything, right? I'm never
Yes.
coming to him on the low, like I need some money for it.
Yeah.
Never asking for anything. I'm figuring it out, but it's still very unconventional. So there's just always this level of just question, like, is it going well? Like, what does that look like? What do you mean it's well? What do the numbers look like? Like a lot of, you know, but we had our first live show last year. He was there. He loved it. Like, I think for me, it's taught me that this is a whole new space. The same way that I would walk into an OR and have no idea what language these doctors are speaking. It's the same him stepping into my world. So it's really on part of the responsibility is on him to ask questions, so show curiosity, but also for me to be more forthcoming with this is what, when I say I'm cutting video for Instagram, this is what that means. This is what that looks like. Look at the views we got. That's really good. Like really like opening up so he can understand, And so that's been part of our journey, I think, me and my dad of like, because now I'm 35, I'm living my life. I've just bought a house with my husband. Like, I've figured it out. Like this art thing, this creative thing. I've figured it out. So that's been part of our journey. Is kind of just like for me, just being more forthcoming and bringing him into this space because it is so completely different from the world that he lives in.
What are the insights? Because I'm always wanting to leave listeners with insights. You've given a realistic what the journey has been to the podcast. They listen to the podcast is a success. There's a backstory. But out of those experiences, what were the key insights?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a big one I remember you and I talked about prior was just like it's okay to pivot.
Yes.
It's not always easy to pivot. Pivoting is very uncomfortable. But it's okay to pivot. It's okay to like decide one day you're doing this thing and then like next year you change your mind. Like that's okay. And I've had to do a lot of pivoting. And each time it's been uncomfortable, from when I quit my job at Columbia to when I decided I'm not going to do the podcast. I'm not going to do the nonprofit. I'm going to do the podcast. Like when I decided I don't want to do film, I'm going to go work in education. Like I had a lot of moments of pivoting that were uncomfortable, but through those moments, I just really came back to a space of being honest with myself and recognizing I have one life to live. Why spend it doing something that you don't want to do? Why spend it doing something that doesn't feed you? If it means pivoting to something else, but I'm going to be happier, I'm going to be better for it, make the pivot. So that's been like a huge, I think, takeaway for me in my journey, and hoping that people can walk away with that. Whatever you're doing now, if something doesn't feel good, sit and have an honest conversation with yourself. And if the end result is you got to pivot away, think about where you could be a year from now and how much happier you might be, how much more fulfilled you might be by making that pivot today.
You bet on yourself.
Yeah.
Ultimately, bet on yourself.
I did.
So I think that's another significant one. And then out of it, I also hear you had to have a lot of difficult conversations.
Yeah.
And you survived.
I did. Yeah, we can do hard things. That's another thing I learned. It's actually one of my favorite podcasts, Glennon Doyle. It's called We Can Do Hard Things.
I love it. Your journey is a perfect example of that. Because it wasn't one difficult conversation you had to have.
Right.
I feel like real difficult ones was the conversations you were having with yourself.
1,000% more difficult than any conversation I had with any person. But just knowing that like, you build up a lot of things in your head, what's that word? Catastrophize. We catastrophize a lot of things. But when you sit and have the conversation, it's uncomfortable for a few minutes, and then you're on the other side of it and you realize, oh, I just did that. Like that was like the hardest thing I thought I was ever going to do in my life, and I just did it. Like we are very capable, just takes a little bit of courage, maybe a little bit of therapy sometimes, maybe a little bit of crying. I'm a crier, so many tears over these years, this whole story, a lot of tears, but at the end of the day, like I'm capable and you can do this. Like, and I think I proved to myself, like I'm a lot more resilient than I maybe thought I was in the beginning of some of these like hard moments.
For sure. So what next? The podcast keeps evolving. Any given day I could listen to an episode and I get plenty from it. But as I was telling you before, I was tracking how you guys were moving in it and developing in it and how much you were giving in it. So that's why initially when I was talking to you, I was like, girl, you're still giving.
Yeah, true.
So what next?
Yeah. What next?
What next on a personal level for Natasha?
Yeah. I was going to start there actually, because
Yeah.
that's
Okay,
really what's going
good.
to influence everything. So, my husband and I are looking forward to starting a family at some point, starting that whole journey of family planning and all of that. So, on a personal level, that's where our head is. We moved out of the city, we moved to the suburbs, we bought a house. We're kind of like putting in the steps to set up this life of like, having a family. And so that's kind of like my goalpost, my focus, and everything else fits around that. And so, the next big step or challenge with the podcast is figuring out, how does one take maternity leave when they have a podcast? Like,
Oh my gosh. Well,
yeah,
when you figure it out, make sure you share it, because I think you're going to be figuring it out for a lot of us.
yeah. What does that look like to like host a podcast that puts out episodes every week, but you're pregnant or just gave birth, and my co-host is we're the same age, so we're in the same period. She just got married. We're in the same period of our life. So
You could potentially be birthing at the
same time, we could be pregnant at the same time. Like, so that's where I'm at. It's just figuring out, okay, how does the podcast need to evolve? We've been starting to put content on YouTube. Do we dive more into video format? And is there ways that we can record a lot of stuff over time and drop it, batch record and then drop it later? We've been doing some reaction content on top of our podcast on Patreon, where you can watch along a TV show with us. We're currently watching The Traitors. I don't know if you're familiar with that show.
Yeah. But I haven't watched it yet.
It's a great one. So every week, Justine and I sit and watch the show, and people watch us watch the show, or you watch along with us.
Tapped into the Real Housewives.
Yeah,
And
we talk Real Housewives sometimes.
You were previewing, and you were going to talk about New York. I was like, oh, I got to make sure I hear that one. And last night was the last episode.
Yeah.
Of course, I was thinking, what is Natasha and Justine going to say about this?
I love that. So yeah, just like thinking about how our content, how our Patreon, how our little ecosystem, our community evolves now as we step into this new phase of life, that as much as we love the podcast, we love our job, we love everything, like bigger, more important things are coming. And how do we make sure everything kind of like supports the other thing, So yeah, that's what's on my mind. That's what's next, I think.
Well, I love this. I appreciate you sitting down with me. As you know, this is me launching my podcast.
Yes, so exciting.
I also want to mention how supportive you've been and have this conversation with me, and just give me some insight. And I agree. Like, you get into this and you're like, oh shit, this is a lot of work.
Not for nothing. It takes a little bit.
But I do hope you come back and you share some more, because I do think the journey is going to get even more interesting. There's so much we could go into that we just don't even have time to go into. But I wish you the best and want you to come back and visit. And of course, I'll be tuning in, because I got to get my Kikis.
Thank you so much, Trish. Thank you for the platform. This was like very almost cathartic for me to have this conversation and kind of recap my journey with myself.
The whole full circle you did.
Truly. I haven't even thought of some of these things, or even asked myself some of these questions. So I really appreciate just having this space to kind of do this for myself, but then also, of course, share with anybody listening what they can take away from my story.
Absolutely. You're a busy girl. I'm going to let you go. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Talk soon.
All right. Talk soon. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining me for this episode of Self-Centered Living. If you've enjoyed this episode and found it beneficial in any way, I would love to hear from you. Please drop me a line at info@self-centeredliving.com. Our music is by Ketsu. Information on our participants can be found in the show notes. I'll meet you back here for next week's episode. Take care until then.